Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses. Welcome. It's good to have you before us. We here in Congress have no greater responsibility than making sure that the men and women we send into harm's way are provided with the best and safest equipment available. Today's hearing on naval strike fighters is an example of the kind of oversight Congress must do to make sure that happens, and I thank the Chairman for focusing on this important topic. There are many issues to discuss today, including whether or not we have enough strike fighters, the state of their material readiness, and the potential need for funding adjustments once we see the President's budget request next week. However, while the number of aircraft we have is an important issue, the performance and quality of those aircraft is just as important. As such, I'd like to focus my concerns today on one particular topic highlighted in today's testimony and the hearing materials provided to members. This issue is the troubled performance of the onboard oxygen generation system of the F-18 fleet. Specifically, I'm concerned about the high rate of hypoxia, which is caused by a lack of oxygen, and other physiological events apparently being experienced by the crew members of F-18 aircraft over the past 5 years. The members of this committee remember well the impact that onboard oxygen generation system failures had some years ago on the F-22 fleet, both in terms of the risk it posed to service members and to the impact it had on the grounding of the entire F-22 fleet. With this in mind, it caused me great concern to learn of the higher than expected rate of physiological events for F-18 pilots over the past several years, going back to at least 2010, according to the Navy. While it must be pointed out that there has thankfully not yet been a confirmed loss of life or aircraft attributed to such events, the increasing rate at which these incidents are occurring and their potential for catastrophic incidents is not lost on any of us. To me, this boils down to keeping our naval aviators and naval flight officers safe. Just as we place a high priority on body armor for our ground troops, making sure the oxygen system works as it should in a $15 million a plane fighter aircraft should be a top priority. While there are many important parts of a complex fighter aircraft, I'm sure our witnesses would agree that the basic life support system for the crew is one of the most important of all. So I look forward to hearing more today about this issue, as well as others that you're here to talk about, what the Navy is doing to correct it, and what the outlook for the future is. In addition, I hope to hear what Congress might be able to do to help solve the problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate, Admiral Moran, your testimony in trying to address some of the issues, but I do want to continue to have a conversation around it because it is, I think, an issue that despite all your efforts and investments and policies and training and everything else, the numbers still don't go down. I mean, in fact, I think over the last the rate of events has been consistently in the range of 20 to 30 events per 100,000 flying hours for the past 3 years. So even as you've made these investments, you're not seeing a lot of progress. So Admiral Manzer, I wanted to ask, what would be a normal or expected rate of such events for the fleet? I mean, what would you look to see as these efforts are being made? Is there such a rate? Have you created something that you're looking to achieve?
Ma'am, that's a good question. Let me describe the physiological event just a little bit and put it into terms that might be a little more understandable. First and foremost, I have complete confidence in the system, the training and the backup systems that we have in the Hornet and the Super Hornet. We've designed them for redundancy. A physiological event occurs when a pilot feels dizzy, feels confused, feels a little strange in the airplane. Admiral Moran mentioned the trainer that we have now. I've been flying Navy airplanes since 1982 on oxygen. I commanded an F-14 squadron that had OBOGs back in 1998. I have 2 cruises with that system, and I have 4 cruises with a Super Hornet, a deployed Super Hornet. I've never experienced a hypoxic event outside of training. I haven't personally. But what we do with the trainer now is you get into a simulated cockpit on the ground, you put an oxygen mask on, and you do simulated training. The system is set up so you can fly a simulator. And they gradually reduce your oxygen content, and they train us to recognize the symptoms. It is not an instant you're gone, it's a confusion factor. And so when a pilot feels that, he deploys his emergency oxygen, which is a 100% oxygen bottle like we used to do. Then he reaches down underneath his left thigh, he pulls a handle, and he goes on to emergency oxygen. That backup system immediately gives him emergency oxygen, and the symptoms subside enough to him to land the airplane. That system has worked 100% every time, and I'm confident it still will. We haven't developed a rate per 100,000 flying hours, because even one event like that, catastrophic, you can lose the airplane. I don't think we will. But we're trying to drive these events down through all of the actions that Reverend Moran talked about, and driving those rates down. I will comment to you that the rates started to climb in 2010. That's the year that we told everybody, okay, we think there's a problem here at Navy leadership. So instead of just coming back and going, yeah, it's kind of dizzy, I think it's fine, it passed. It passed. We said, I want you to report every single event. So I think the phenomenon that you're seeing between 2010 and now is an increase in reporting. They are very real events, and they do key us into where we go for causal factors. But the chairman talked about the firefighting breathing apparatus. It's like chasing a ghost. We can't figure out, because the monitoring devices that do this are not on the airplane, to figure out whether there was a small oxygen content that more than we needed, or less than we needed, or a carbon monoxide event, or poison in the gas, something that came off of bearings, a breathing toxic air. We haven't been able to figure that out, so we've been chasing ghosts, and we were replacing and creating new parts and chasing those things. So, ma'am, I think we're just trying to get the rate down as far as possible while still understanding the causal factors. But if we had a confidence problem in the airplane, we would ground the fleet. And we don't have that problem. That's why you don't see the commander of Naval Nav Air, Vice Admiral Paul Grossklags, going to that extreme measure, because we have confidence in the system. We're just trying to figure out the cause of these episodes.
And I appreciate the efforts that you all are making. It's obviously a real issue, and one in which the safety of the pilot is, paramount in everybody's mind. But even as you're making all so I appreciate that the reporting is better, so you have a better understanding of the scope of the problem. That's always the first step we have to take. But that's also been in concert with all these other efforts that you are making to try to address and solve the problem and fix it. And despite that, there seems to be no progress made, because the reported numbers remain the same. So I'm curious, in addition, as we are talking about the budget going forward, what the cost of this has been, and is it a funding issue? Is it a technological issue that people just somehow haven't been able to identify? Could you address that?
Yes, ma'am. I don't see it as a funding issue. We've gotten all the resources we've asked for on the technical side to go ahead and investigate the causal factor. So I don't see it as a resource question. The new filter material that we're replacing in the current systems has been funded and supported, so we're putting those in the airplanes as we speak. Like I said, only 219 systems to date, but they're looking to do about 40 a month to get that into all the jets. The new oxygen monitor system is resourced. It's going through the final stages of its testing, as I said, in Pax River. That is funded, and it's in fiscal year 17 have to be installed in the airplanes. The changes we made to date on the ECS system have all been funded and supported across the board. So from an acquisition standpoint, providing systems to the fleet, I have not faced any resource challenges or issues to get that support across the enterprise.
Have you looked at installing an automatic backup system, and would there be a cost to that?
Well, as Admiral Mazur talked, we do have the automatic oxygen, the oxygen system as a backup. What we're looking at is, can we increase the amount of that oxygen system that we carry in the airplane, so we can give a longer duration in that emergency piece. So we are actively today looking at, can we increase? Right now, depending on the altitude and really the condition of the pilot, that lasts anywhere between 20 minutes and maybe down to 5 minutes. So can we extend that, by 2 to 4-fold to give that pilot that real backup system for extended period of time? We're looking at that as well.
Would there be a cost issue associated with that?
It would be an expense, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Cook.